Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got a third-party Transformers review coming your way. This time we're going to be taking a look at the Magic Square Beatback and Collide. So this is Magic Square's take on the Stunticons Breakdown and Wildrider. So as we always do, let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging first. We'll bring that in for its close-up. So up top you have Magic Square. This is only for people 16 plus. You got their little logo right there. And then down here you have some artwork of Beatback and Collide. And then you have the little Magic Square Brobdingnag mascot. Over here on this side you have a little bit of information for Collide, aka Breakdown. Over here on the back you have what I like to call the Shadow of Menasor. And over here you have some information for Beatback, aka Wildrider. Up top you have Beatback and Collide. Down low you have your warnings, made in China, and Sad Baby. Sad Baby is universal. He's everywhere. So that's it for the packaging. So let's go ahead and take a look at what came inside that box. Alright gang, so for your viewing pleasure, this is everything that came inside that box. So we will go ahead and we'll start over here on the left hand side with Beatback, and we'll go ahead and take a look at that card. So they do come with their little stat card, if you will, that gives all the relevant information and a little bit of artwork, which I think is really cool. And they do come wrapped in this plastic, or they come in the little plastic envelope. I don't see any sense in taking them out. So there you go. And he comes with one weapon, which is the one you see right here. And it's not loaded with detail, but it's not bad. So, you know, considering the fact that this guy is Legends scale, you know, you're not going to see a lot of detail, I suppose. But I think it works, and, you know, it's nice and sturdy. It's got a good feel to it, so no complaints there. And then let's go ahead and take a look at Collide. And he came with a card as well, so there is his stat card and the artwork on the back. There you go. And then he comes with a weapon as well. So much like the other weapon, this is just molded plastic. There's no paint on there, but I do like the fact that he's got this nice long scope on there. So, you know, hopefully his aim is pretty good with that thing. So there you go. And now, here in the middle, for those who don't know, the Beatback and Collide are two of a total of 5 of the Magic Square Stunticons, or just regular Stunticons, but this is Magic Square's take on it, and yes, they are combiners. So I will have a later review out where I cover the other 2 limbs, if you will, because these guys are limbs for their Magic Square Menasor, the combined mode. And I'll be putting out a review shortly for the other 2 limbs. And then, of course, we'll have for the torso, which is the Magic Square Overlord, or the Decepticon Motor Master. So this is all in Legend scale, which is really cool. But these parts right here are for the Menasor, their Menasor, once you combine them, so just to decorate him up. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this review with this. I will concentrate on that in the Menasor review when we do the combine review and an overview of that Menasor. But you do get these pieces. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump my camera, but you get those pieces left and right of each of those. And I think for the most part they've got some nice detail on there, and this is going to look amazing in the Menasor mode, so stay tuned for that. Alright, so that's everything that came in the box except for the 2 fellas themselves. So we will go ahead and we will start on the left with Beatback. So let's go ahead and get Collide out of the way. We'll bring Beatback in for his details. Alright guys, so here we have Beatback, aka Stunticon Breakdown. And before we even get started and bring him in for the close-up, I do want to show you something to kind of put it in perspective. This guy is a Legend scale, so bringing in the ruler, you can see, if I put it right beside him, that he is just under 4 inches tall. So we're not talking about a very big figure here, but when I bring him in for a close-up and we talk about the articulation and the transformation, keep that in mind. For a figure this size, this is amazing engineering. So right off the bat, that's one of the things that I will tell you is Magic Square has packed in a lot of engineering into these figures. So let's go ahead and bring him in. And we'll start up here at the top with that head. And yeah, for a little guy, that is a really nice head sculpt. Looks really angry right there. And the paint, I think, is done very well. See if I can get a little bit of contrast for you. But yeah, I think what they've done here, this just looks great for a figure this size. And coming down here to the chest, now this is the G1 type aesthetic, so there's not a lot of detail going on here, but what little they have I think works really well. So he's got this chest right there, he's got that nice blue paint, and come down here, he's got a little bit of detail for the crotch right there. And I like what they've done down here for the knees. So this is actually part of the knee, but they filled it in nicely with just almost looks like lights right there. So very well done. And then down here with those shins, looks great. And no hollow areas to speak of on these figures. So if you look even on the inside of the legs here, get a little bit of contrast. Now the only hollow area you really have is just this slider pin. That's it. So nicely done. And you come over here to the side, and he does have a little bit of Lamborghini hanging off on the side of his leg, but it looks good. It looks really good. And coming up here, before we look at the arm, let's go ahead and look underneath. Same thing here. This is nicely filled out, and he has very little as far as a backpack goes. So he has this hood hanging off the back, but that's it. And then you look at the rest of the arm here, even on the inside, nicely filled out. Open him up. Look up underneath. Yeah, great engineering, very well done. The arms look good. And come around to the back. He does have that hood backpack that we just mentioned. But other than that, he is just a solid figure. He looks really good. Very well done. Now, as far as the articulation goes, I'm going to cover articulation with both of them, but I'm going to do a majority of it here with Beatback, because Beatback and Collide share the same transformation. They have the same articulation, the same joints. So I'll go into a little bit more detail here with Beatback than I will with Collide. So as far as that head goes, it's on a ball joint, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. So you get a little bit of wiggle and a little bit of up and a little bit of down. So you're not going to get a whole lot with these guys, but it's okay as far as I'm concerned. And then you can take that head all the way around if you choose to do so. And then down here at the shoulders, you can bring the shoulders up that far, and you can take them all the way around a full 360 if you want to do so. And then you come down here to the biceps, and you do get 90 degrees of bend, and you do get a bicep rotation, so you can go all the way around with these guys. And you get rotation at the wrists as well. So you can rotate those wrists at just about any angle you choose. Now, coming down here to the waist. All right, guys, sorry about that edit on that, but he does have the waist rotation where you can go all the way around with that waist. And he doesn't have an ab crunch. He has a bit of a back crunch, I guess is what you would call it. But this is there for the combine mode. I mean, you could certainly use it if you want to use it in his robot mode, but it's not very practical. It's just there for the combine mode. So you can pull it out a little bit if you want and get a little bit of forward. But at that point, you're starting to, I don't know, I think he's starting to lose his looks a little bit. So I think of it more as a back crunch than an ab crunch. And down here at the hips, you can get, there we go. You can get a full split on this guy. So not quite a Van Damme, but very well done. And you can kick forward that far. You can kick backward that far. So outstanding range of motion in those hips. And then down here at the thighs, you get a little bit at that ball joint. You can move those a little bit, but then you also have thigh rotation right here. So you can take those all the way around if you choose to do so. At the knees, you get right at 90. And then down here at the feet, this is where the Collide is a little bit different than Beatback. Their feet are a little bit different, so we'll talk about that when I bring Collide in. But as far as the feet go, you can bring his feet down that far. You can bring his feet up that far. And then you have really good ankle tilt on this guy. So absolutely fantastic articulation on both of these figures. And something else of note is I love how stable they are. I mean, they've just got big old flat feet and all the joints are tight, so you can get them in some really cool dynamic poses if you want, you know, and they still have a pretty decent center of gravity. So these guys are great for posing. They're so much fun. So, but while I've got him, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about the one and only accessory that he comes with, and that's that gun. So nothing real surprising here. You take the gun, plug it into his hand, and then, you know, pew, pew, bang, bang. Oh, yeah, I mentioned that. Okay, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that he did have the bicep rotation. So you don't get any type of rotation at the shoulders. So if you're going to, you know, have him fire, you know, all your rotation is going to happen right here at that elbow. So just so you know. But yeah, he can pew, pew, bang, bang all day. And let's get that in a little bit more. There we go. Plug it in just a little bit more. That way now he's nice and flush. So yeah, I mean, there you go. That is Beatback, aka Breakdown. And what a cool little figure. So let's go ahead and bring Collide in and take a quick look at him as well. And here we have Mr. Collide, aka Stunticon Wildrider. So let's go ahead and bring him in for his details. And that is definitely a Wildrider head if I've ever seen one. Give me a little bit of focus, please. There you go. Thank you. So, yeah, what a cool head sculpt. This character's always had a cool looking head, and for a figure this size, I think they've done a great job of pulling this off. So, come down here to the chest, and again, it's that minimalistic G1 kind of aesthetic, but I think what detail they have on there looks pretty darn good. So, no complaints whatsoever as far as that goes. And then come down here to the crotch, and there's not a whole lot going on right here. It's pretty boring, but I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, it looks good. So come down here to the legs. Similar thing here with those knees. So you filled those gaps in nicely. I would have liked to have seen some paint right here. You know, maybe something to differentiate from all this gray that you've got going on down here. But the plastic feels good. What little detail they have looks good. I just think a little bit of paint would have gone a long way right there. Same thing as with Beatback. You have no hollow areas. You just have that little slider right there. So very well done. Coming over to the side, he has a little bit of Ferrari hanging off. Or, well, it's not technically a Ferrari. I mean, it's just a nondescript car, but I think we all know what it is. And looking up underneath, no hollow areas on this guy either. And, you know, like I said, they share the same transformation and the same engineering. So, you know, you're going to expect if there's hollow areas, they're going to be about the same spot. If there's no hollow areas, about the same spot. So, looking at the side of the arm, that red and gray looks really good. And you come back here, he's got a little bit of a hood hanging off the back, but nothing too bad. And then back here, it's just a decent amount of gray plastic. All right. Now, as far as the articulation goes for him, articulation is almost identical to Beatback. Just a couple things that I do want to note. On my copy, this isn't, I don't know if I want to call it a complaint, but on my copy, so you have the bicep rotation, just like you do with Beatback, right? So, you know, you can bring that in and out. But on this arm right here, this is scary. I don't know if it's just a tolerancing issue, but whenever I try to move this, oh my gosh, it takes so much force. It makes me really nervous. So I know technically he's supposed to be able to have the bicep rotation on this side, but I am not going to abuse that at all. So he has just enough where I can kind of pose him, but I'm not going to risk it. I don't want to break anything right here. So just something to note. And technically speaking, he's not supposed to have his shoulders come down like that, but you could take advantage of it if you want. It's just as I was prying on that bicep just now, I just loosened up a couple of his slots back here. There we go. Plug it back in. All right. So everything else is the same. The waist is the same. You've got that little backward movement. You could pull him out a little bit if you want and get a little bit of an ab crunch. But I don't think technically that's what it's there for. So the splits are the same, kick forward, kick back is the same, knees are the same, and then you get down to the feet. The feet are a little bit different. So on Beatback, you didn't have any toes. On Collide or Wildrider, you do. So you do have these little toes that when he's in car mode, you know, you flip those in, and then when he's in robot mode, you flip them out. And something of note on this guy, it's probably me, but my fingernails aren't long enough to effectively get this toe back out, so I do have to use a tool when I transform him from car to robot mode to get those toes back out. But he does have those toes, and they are strong enough that you can use them. The pin is tight enough that you can use them for some posing, so if you want to do that. And then as far as the feet go, this is a slightly different assembly and a pin point or a hinge point back here. So as for these feet, they can go, this is for transformation, they can go all the way around like that. So take them about as deep as you need them to, but they're limited to their upward movement. So you're only going to get about that much before you start running into the front of this shin. So you come down quite a bit, as much as you want. Coming up is going to be limited. And that ankle tilt is extreme. So you're not going to have any shortage of ankle tilt, but it's something worth noting that the ankle tilt only happens on the front half of the foot. So you see where I'm twisting that there. You can turn this all the way around, but you know, you may, depending on your poses, you may run into some issues here. Now they do have this 45-degree cutout, which is nice. That helps quite a bit, but just something to be aware of, that if you run into any posing issues, it's probably going to be the back of this foot. All right, so that is it for the details on articulation on Collide. So let's talk about his one accessory. And much like Beatback, you take the gun, you extend his arm, and you plug it in. And then, yeah, pew pew, bang bang, all day long. All right, so let's go ahead and get into transformation for these guys and take a look at those alt modes. All right, everybody, so for the transformation sequence, Beatback has graciously volunteered to be our model. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So what you're going to want to do is, first thing, just take those arms and give those arms a nice little shove. Nice and gentle, and make them flush right there. Do the same thing on the other side. After you've done that, you can take him and just open him up. So you open that up right there, and then this reveals everything back here, and you're going to take that head and you're going to tuck it away. Make sure you got it straight so he clears. And once you've done that, now this is your little assembly here for the shoulders. Now this is some pretty clever engineering, actually. So what you want to do to get him into car mode from here, we're just going to focus on this shoulder for now. So you're going to want to take this, pull it out, and then swing it up. So you have two hinge points right here on the larger pin and the smaller pin. So then you're going to swing that up as such. All right. So this is your before, and this is your after. So this is what you're looking to accomplish there. All right, so we'll do the same thing over here. So grab that and then swing it up and then swing that arm down. So you should have something that looks like that. All right, so now you can just kind of gently tuck those arms in. We're not going to pin anything in yet. We're just going to get everything ready. So go ahead and pull that hood down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our attention down here to the legs. So what you'll do is you will take, kind of hold right here, and then start giving this a little bit of a wiggle. And you're going to pull that out, and you've got a plastic pin in there. You're going to pull that straight out till you give yourself enough clearance. Do the same thing on the other side over here. And then on the insides of these legs, you have these sliders. So you're going to take those legs right here, and you're going to shove those up on that slider until they're all the way at the far end down here. So do the same thing on the other side. Take that and give it a shove, and then you have your tab and slot system. So squeeze those two together as such. And now what you'll do is you will take these pieces and you're going to rotate them 180 degrees. And as you rotate them 180 degrees, take these feet, bring those feet down, and then you notice that you have some tabs here and you have some slots there. So as you bring these down, you're going to need to clear the hands into this little cavity right there, So bring that down. Might be easier to see from this side. Bring that down. And then clear that hand. And once you've cleared that hand, then you start giving this a little bit of a gentle squeeze right there. And then you're looking to line up the tab and the slot up here. But I'm going to get this one in the approximate position first. So bring that over and clear that hand. And give it a little bit of a squeeze in. All right, so now that I have everything about where I need it to be, now I can bring this hood down. Now you have tabs in there that are going to line up to the slots on those shoulders, so I'm going to give those a squeeze right now with my fingers. Make sure those are nice and flush right there, and then I'm going to bring my hood down, give that hood a squeeze, and it'll snap into place. Once you've done that, you can take these legs, and you have these tabs right there, so you're going to wiggle everything into place until it snaps. And do the same thing over here. And once you have that, now you can just take these feet and squeeze those feet down and line them up. And there you have Mr. Beatback in his alt mode. And this is a cool looking little Lamborghini. And Collide, his transformation is the exact same. The only difference that you need to remember is fold these toes up. And if you don't remember that, once you transform him, you're going to see the toes sticking out and you're going to remember, oh yeah, I need to fold those toes. But yeah, so these guys have the same transformation, and when that transformation is said and done, these are about Hot Wheels size, but they look amazing. So let's go ahead and we'll get Collide into his car mode, and then we'll look at these guys in their car mode. We'll look at some of those details there. All right, guys, so here we have Beatback and Collide both in their vehicle modes, and like I said, they just look great for the size of figures that they are. I mean, these are Hot Wheel or Matchbox sized cars. They look great. So let's go ahead and bring Beatback in, and we'll look at his details first. And of course, this is obviously based on a Lamborghini. So we'll start up here at the front. And he does have that nice red on the hood, and he does have some details for those headlights right there. And coming around to the side, he does have that signature Lamborghini intake. And I think for the most part, everything comes together very nicely. So, yeah, I mean, I have very, very few complaints about this guy. Just looks good all the way around. If anything, I guess, if I'm being picky, maybe I would have liked those wheels to be a little bit larger, you know, but for the most part, looks great. I mean, these guys even come decked out with tail lights. Now, if they would have chromed out these exhaust tips, that would have been even better. That would have been just so cool. But yeah, he looks good. And down here at the bottom, unless you know what you're looking for, you don't see a robot there. So, you know, very well done as far as the conversion goes. A convincing car mode, a convincing robot mode. Yeah, really good looking. Now, as far as Mr. Collide, this is obviously based on a Ferrari. So, let me see. Get his hood squeezed down just a little bit more. There we go. And yeah, you've got nice details right up here on the hood. You got that red windshield. I mean, this is definitely Wildrider, no doubt about it. And if you look under here, look at this, guys. They painted the lights. I mean, come on. This is, for such a tiny car, the amount of detail. I mean, this is better than what you get on some Hot Wheels and some Matchbox as far as I'm concerned. And back here on the back, you do get a little bit of chrome, and you get those tail lights. Yeah, this looks good. This is just making me feel like a kid again. And again, same thing with this guy. I have no complaints. And if you look underneath, you don't see a robot unless you know what you're looking for. And I mean, these guys do share the same transformation, and you would expect similarities, and there they are. So yeah, very, very well done. I really like these figures. I like what Magic Square has done here. So I think they look great. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll bring in some vehicle mode comparisons so you can see how he looks compared to a few other figures. Or how they look, I should say, not how he looks. How they look, plural, to some other figures. Alright, so for our first comparison, since I don't have any G1 Stunticons except for Motormaster, and I'm going to use him as a comparison for Overlord, I figured I would bring in one of the only other G1 combiner sets that I have, and that's one of my Constructicons. So this is Mixmaster. Next up is the Lockdown toy that we got from the Transformers Age of Extinction movie. So this isn't the studio series, this is the actual original toy that came out when that movie premiered. So you can see how they stack up against a deluxe class figure from that era. Next up is Deep Cover from the War for Cybertron trilogy. So you can see this is loosely based on a Lamborghini as well. So you can see a couple of Lamborghinis there and see how they compare. Next up is my universal scale. So this is the War for Cybertron Optimus Prime as we saw him in his Earthrise and or Kingdom semi-truck mode. Next up is the Magic Square Space Skimming, aka Cyclonus. So this is another figure from the same company. So these are all three Magic Square, essentially Legends scaled masterpiece Transformers, if you will. And our last comparison is the Hot Wheels version of the Tumbler Batmobile from the Dark Knight trilogy. So the Dark Knight Rises, that kind of stuff. So you can see how they compare next to a Hot Wheels car. All right, that'll do it for the alt mode comparisons. So let's go ahead and get these guys transformed back into their robot modes. All right, so Mr. Collide has so graciously volunteered to be our model for the transformation from car mode back to robot mode. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just start giving all this a little bit of a wiggle until you get some stuff separated right there. And then you can just hold on and give this a pull right there. Do the same thing on the other side, give that a pull. And that allows you now to rotate this down to the bottom. And when you do that, this is where you're going to want to flip those feet out. And those toes are a pain for me. They're not the easiest thing, so if I struggle, I may edit, but I'm only editing for those toes. Maybe I'll get lucky. Alright, so we've got that other toe, so go ahead and pull that toe on out. So you should have something that looks like that. Now, give this a little bit of a pull, and then you can bring these down on that slider. So bring that down like that. Do the same thing on the other side, bring it down. And then you have tabs and slots. Now these are slightly different on Beatback, but they're still the same thing. They're just in a slightly different position. So line those tabs and slots up and then squeeze that together. And you have one leg done. Come over here, do the same thing, line them up and give that a squeeze. And you have two legs all finished. Now you can turn your attention to the top up here. So just take that hood, give that hood a little bit of a push, have that come out like that, and then you can pull him apart. And these do actually secure very tightly, so be careful when you're pulling. So this may take a little bit of wiggling to get him loose, but do your best to try not to pull too hard on that center assembly right there, because you don't want to cause any issues. So if you can just get your thumbnail up underneath that and pull that out. Open that up and then take these arms, bring them out a little bit, give them a pull, and then you're going to bend them 90 degrees down here at this smaller pin. So give them a 90-degree bend, and I should show the before and after here. So this is your before, this is your after, and that's what you should see. And do the same thing on the other side. So give that a little bit of a bend, bring it down, and then need to find enough clearance to pull this down enough to get the head out. So that can be a bit of a challenge as well. All right, and the head, again, that is a bit of a small space, so if you can use a tool, do so. And I may have to do the same thing here. I may have to just edit this to get this out, so you're not sitting here watching me struggle for a minute or two trying to get that head out. So it's always helpful to have a small tool with you to get that head out. All right, so let's go get a tool. Okay, now we have that head out enough where I can grab it. So pull that head up just like that. And then when you bring this in, you're going to do the same thing as you've done before. You have these tabs, and then they're just going to align to these slots right behind those mushroom joints right there. So make sure you have these aligned. Bring this up. And I don't like to squeeze down on the hood. I like to actually move the hood out of the way. I'm going to try to do this where you can see it. So you bring that in, and I'm going to use my fingers to squeeze in on those. So you should have something that looks like that. Now he has a little bit more of a gap than Beatback does, but this is in all the way for him. And then you just kind of tuck that away wherever you want it. Then you can bring the arms down and give them a pull. Do the same thing over here. Give them a pull. And there you have, oops, there you don't. Got to rotate his waist. I'm sitting there fiddling with him. That's better. Now you have Collide transformed in his robot mode. So now that we have both of these fellas transformed back into their robot modes, let's get into some robot mode comparisons so you can see how these guys look against some other figures. So our first robot mode comparison is the G1 Mixmaster. So like I said in the vehicle mode, the Constructicons are the only G1 combiners that I have left. So there you go. And from a size standpoint, yeah, those guys size right up with G1 pretty darn good. So there you go. Next up is the Lockdown toy that came out with the premiere of the Transformers Age of Extinction movie. And my gosh, it's not even a comparison. I mean, these guys are 2/3 the size and 5 times as much engineering and effort put into them. So bravo and well done. Next comparison is Deep Cover from the War for Cybertron trilogy. So you can see how these guys scale up to that. And the next comparison that we have is what I like to call my universal scale. So this is the Optimus Prime from the Transformers War for Cybertron in his Earthrise and or Kingdom mode. So you can see how these two guys stack up to Optimus Prime. And our last robot mode comparison is Magic Square's take on Cyclonus. So this is their space skimming figure. So there you can see 3 Magic Square products right next to each other. All right, so that's going to do it for the robot mode comparisons. So let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about those final thoughts on the Magic Square Beatback and Collide. I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way now. These figures are great. Without a doubt, I would recommend you picking these up. I think you're not going to regret it. Now, it's even more fun knowing that these guys are part of a combiner. They're part of the Magic Square Menasor, and I'm so looking forward to bringing that review to you. But we've got to get through the limbs first. So these two guys were the first up. We've got a couple more limbs to go, and then we'll be getting into the Magic Square Overlord, their take on Motormaster, before we finally get to that Menasor. So there's going to be a few parts to this journey that we're taking, but just these figures alone, even if they weren't combiners, everything about them is great. I mean, the transformation is simple, but it's not simple actually. There's a level of complexity to it, but it's intuitive and it's fun and it has a good flow. There's nothing frustrating about it. You're going to really enjoy transforming these guys from one mode to the other, and you're going to want to keep doing it for an indefinite amount of time because it's a lot of fun. And couple that with the fact that they look great in both modes. I mean, these bot modes are phenomenal. The car modes look great. There's very little to complain about with these figures. I mean, quality, details, engineering, articulation, it's all there. The only downside is going to be the price. So for all intents and purposes, you're getting the Legends scale masterpiece figures, and they do come with a Legends scale masterpiece price tag. So For these guys, they came in a 2-pack. I picked them up on the website, ages 3 and up. They were $65 US. But for the level of engineering and all the fun that you get out of these figures, and couple that with the fact that they're a combiner, I think the price is well worth it. These are far and above anything that has been released in the core line by Hasbro or Takara. And that's not a knock on Hasbro and Takara. You know, we're talking apples and oranges here, but I don't want you looking at these figures and thinking of core class bots, because they're not. These guys are, they're Legends class, but they're in a class of their own. So in short, I'm going to highly recommend you pick these up. Depending on where you go to find them, they could be in short supply. You may have to wait for a reissue, but trust me when I tell you that I think they're worth it. So with that, we're going to wrap the review up. I hope this has been helpful to you guys. I hope this helps you make a smart decision. And as always, if you like what we do here, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and leave us some comments and let us know what you think about these guys, because I'm just over the moon about them. I'm really looking forward to playing with these guys. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to go play with these guys for a little bit. So until we see you guys in the next review, take care.